Today's video is a little different. I recorded this last year, 2018, for our annual MonCon, which is a monsoon convention that we have here in Phoenix. I was supposed to attend and present, and at the last minute, I decided I need to go to California. My wife and son were at the hospital out there with my son going through some therapy, and I felt like I really needed to be there that weekend to be with them. And so I didn't want to leave the convention hanging, so I recorded this presentation late at night before I had to leave, I think the day before the conference started. And when I got back, I had a lot of good feedback from it. People texted me or emailed me. I had a chaser on the side of a road meet up with me during the summer when we were out chasing, and he told me how much it meant to him. And I was kind of blown away by the response. And I had really never intended to do anything else with it but have it there. But since the feedback was so nice, I thought I would post it on YouTube and just kind of put it out there to see what people thought. It has some neat interviews in it with some other chasers that I think you'll really like. And it's about the pain of storm chasing and kind of the frustration and agony when you miss stuff and all that. So I think it's something as a storm chaser we all go through. So I think that it'll speak to you, hopefully. Afterwards, if you have any questions or just wanted to leave some feedback, throw it in the comments, send me a note, and, all the usual stuff. So this was a really important video for me just to kind of get out there my feelings on it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm excited to be able to have this opportunity to record a little presentation for you guys. Hopefully I'll throw in enough photos and video and some other interviews from some other people that it won't be so boring. So my presentation is basically on the pain of storm chasing, the regret, and maybe how to overcome that. For those that don't know me, before I go on too far, my name's Mike. I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I lived here my whole life. I'm married with a wife and 3 kids that I take storm chase with me, the kids at least. I do wedding photography is part of my job that I also do. And I've shot my first lightning photo in 2009. I shot a pretty crazy dust storm in 2011. And 2 days ago in 2011, I shot a pretty cool supercell in Texas 2 years later that ended up in a pretty cool movie. Take my kids chasing, like I said. We went out last year to try to chase some supercells in Colorado and got some really cool photos. But mostly it feels like all I really do is stand around and do selfies in front of storms, apparently wearing various superhero t-shirts. And in fact, I'm wearing another one right now. By the way, Ant-Man and the Wasp, really good. Check it out. So, storm chasing. Storm chasing is hard. There's many reasons why it's hard. The chasing part of it, the forecasting, the road network, all that kind of stuff. But there's another aspect of it to me that is kind of hard, and that is the pain of missing stuff. And I believe when you're first starting out and new at it, that it can be worse. You're frustrated. You want to see something great. You put a lot of work and effort into it, and then you miss something. You don't forecast right, or you're 40 miles away from something, and it's really hard. In fact, I have this quote that I like to show. Some of you may have seen it before, but the quote goes, "Storm chasing is a soul-sucking addiction that will leave you in such a euphoric state that you can hardly contain yourself, or so depressed you're ready to call it quits at any moment." And that's my quote, because I came up with that about 3 or 4 years ago when I was working on a presentation, and it seems to be really fitting. There's a lot of highs when you get a great supercell, you get a tornado, you get a great lightning shot, or a great dust storm here in Arizona. The highs are incredible. You're amazed at what you're seeing. But then when you miss stuff, the lows can be really low. They can be depressing, and there's various kind of levels of it. This year I chased drove out 20,000 miles across the plains chasing tornadoes, supercells, and put in 37 days all told from April 28th until like June 22nd. 37 total days I was out there. I saw 10 tornadoes. One of them was really good. The others were okay. I was on the wrong side of them. and at least in my opinion, after May 25th, the structure and stuff I saw was really difficult to come by. It wasn't anything, amazing that I wanted to get. So, so I have this whole season. I do all this stuff at the end, towards the end of June. I've got stuff coming. I have my anniversary on the 19th of June. I've got some family stuff that I'm dealing with, still this weekend. So I miss, the end of the month I couldn't chase. And so, of course, what happens at the end of June? Amazing tornado here in Colorado. This is taken by my buddy Blake Brown. This insane supercell structure in Kansas by Kelly DeLay. And then the crazy day in southeast Montana and northwest South Dakota with this tornado. It was like 10 different tornadoes that ripped through there. Eric Miola got some really cool shots. And you see this and you're like, oh my gosh, all the work I put into, and here I am watching all this stuff from home going, why couldn't that have happened while I was out there? And it kind of puts you in a little bit of a funk. Worse though is being there and missing stuff. Here's May 27th, 2015. We're chasing in Canadian, Texas. It's a town. And we are on a beautiful supercell, drops a funnel, doesn't really touch ground, kind of moves across the highway. The whole storm does not move more than like a mile or two for like 2.5 hours. We're sitting north of Canadian, looking west, watching this storm, and it's just raining, and we can't, as a photographer and time-lapser, I can't shoot anything in the rain. So we decide, hey, let's bail south of town. It looks like maybe it's starting to move towards town. We get on the south side. We'll get a good view of it. So, go through town. Literally 7 or 8 minutes later, this is the view that my GoPro got in the back of our car of a wedge tornado that touched down while we were driving away. And Andy, my buddy Andy Holland, sees it on his phone and you're like, are you kidding me? So we turn around and go back and we see it in the distance over the hill. We're really zoomed in with the camera here, and then it ropes out. And we weren't in any place to get any good photos of it. We missed it. It just was eating me up inside. I mean, this was a photo by Andrea Griffa, who was right where we had been just, moments before when this big tornado dropped. And maybe it would have been raining, couldn't do anything, but we could have definitely gotten photos, and it would have been an amazing experience, And that was kind of I had a lot of PTSD with that storm later, kind of regretting driving away from things. And May 29th, 2 days later after that, right? I have that kind of like, okay, we got to see something. I'm really pressing. And we started the day in New Mexico, Tucumcari, chasing storms there. Big lines started forming down into New Mexico along the Texas border. We raced zigzag all the way into Texas. And we're getting in front of the storm, starting to see sunset colors, and we look over and we see this needle come down like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's a tornado. And so we stop, pull over, and screech to a halt. Oh my gosh, there's an amazing tornado out there. We're like 30 or 40 miles away, but it's a cool silhouette. The color's really neat. Unfortunately for me, we're so far away that this was with my 135, and we're really zoomed in. So it's great. We're all happy. We're all like, hey, we saw a tornado that makes up for 2 days ago missing Canadian. Feel really good. And then about 30 minutes later, what do we see? Is Christian Cleary's photo. And I mean, honestly, this GIF right here would explain my feelings at that moment. And also, you kind of want to just take your camera, throw it out the window, and say, forget this, I'm going home. This little photo we got was really cool until we saw what we missed if we had maybe been thinking a little bit more and started following these storms from behind. It's irrational. It's making a mistake or doing a different strategy, and it didn't pay off for us, paid off for someone else. It doesn't matter, but it still affects you, and it eats at you. And the cool thing, I think, the one thing that makes me feel better, and I'll explain a little bit more about, an experience I had and why I felt better, was that other people share the same pain. Other storm chasers, some that you may know, have all had these regrets and had these moments where they maybe wish they had done something else. So here's some stories from some other people.
Hello, MonCon. Hello, Mike. The day that stung me the most, I think, was June 4th, 2015. I was missing a lot of pretty tornadoes that year, and on the day before, June the 3rd, there were two target areas. You had the Colorado upslope, and you had the Kansas, something going on in Kansas, and I chose the Colorado upslope. And of course, nothing happened in Colorado, and Kansas produced a beautiful supercell. So the next day, you had the same thing. You had the Colorado upslope, the Kansas supercell, or the Kansas target area. But this time, I thought the Kansas setup was a little better, so I went to Kansas. And of course, it happened in Colorado, the Simla supercell tornado fest. And to make insult to injury, the Simla supercell's anvil overspread my Kansas target area and is what kept my storms from going. And I think I called my wife crying, I called the gods crying, and eventually I got over it. But the trick is, it's a coin toss, and you just gotta keep flipping and try not to flip out. Eventually you'll hit your storm. Take care.
So I am still bitter 8 years later after missing a tornado in Wyoming, which is where I'm standing now. So I'm hoping it's Redemption Day. We'll see what happens. We were en route to Wyoming out of Colorado. We had our target picked. We were gonna be on time, and we got caught in construction and a pilot car. We waited 30 minutes, missed the tornado by that much because of construction. Brutal, brutal. Biggest miss I've ever had, so regret it.
You think I can just pick one out of the handfuls? One of the earliest ones was in 2009 when I was in northeastern Kansas with my dad. It was our 1 week chase trip that we did every single year. And we were on this tornado-warned storm, moderate risk, nothing could possibly go wrong, and we had just missed the, God, what was that? The Goshen County, Wyoming tornado the day prior, or 2 days prior. So anyways, we're like, this is our redemption, we're gonna make it happen. And the storm is just not doing it. It crosses the river, there's giant hail, we get behind it, and then I get a phone call from my mother. She says, there's a tornado in the backyard. And I'm like, what? And I start getting calls from all my friends. Max, you see this tornado? Just this beautiful, just incredible tornado 5 miles from my house. Went over my grandparents' house, and we got nothing. After that, probably, I don't know. I really don't know. Wynnewood was a big one.
In my 8 years of chasing, my biggest regret has to be May 25th, 2016, the Chapman Day. A 90-minute long wedge that traveled less than 25 miles. It's a shame, because that's a dream tornado, and I was just coming off of Dodge City, which was the best chase of my life with my best pictures I've ever had. I just wasn't paying attention. I looked up the observed sounding at Wichita, it looked good, and I busted there on a shriveling up draft. Don't be like me and miss 90-minute wedges. Just don't.
Okay, so my story involves the 28th of June 2018 in South Dakota with that tornado. There was two setups on this day, low pressure coming into South Dakota and a lifted warm front towards the Canadian border. Both had their merits. I was a little concerned the warm front was a little bit too far away from the low pressure. Targeted the warm front, long story short, our storm spanned all day, didn't produce a tornado. This storm went up around the low pressure where the moisture was and produced this monster. This was my biggest mistake.
Fantastic. I look good.
You look good. You look good.
I don't really care.
Your worst day that you will always regret. Where you screwed up.
I think one of the worst days I've experienced as far as chasing's concerned was Bennington Mark II. Bennington Mark II, I watched it from, well, on radar from a good 250 miles away. Instead, 5 hours later, I decided to go to it and I still see it. But of course, my dear friend Mike gets the whole thing. I'm happy for him. I'm not happy for me. These are the days you regret.
Okay, so you heard them. You can sense that a lot of them still have some regrets, and we all have those stories. For me, my biggest story and kind of the turning point, probably in kind of emotionally recovering from these things was last year on June 12th. To set the stage real briefly, I had been leading a tour group around chasing for 10 days all across the Central Plains, stayed an extra day or two in Montana. Driving home, I'm exhausted. I drive 19 hours from Montana to Phoenix. I sleep for maybe an hour and a half somewhere in western Wyoming. And as I'm coming into Arizona, one of my friends messaged me from a Facebook group and says, "Hey Mike, are you booking your ticket back to Denver for Sunday?" Whenever day it was, basically 2 days from now. And I said, what? I haven't looked. I missed my family, my wife, my kids. I just wanted to get home. But it had been a tough season. I didn't feel like I had seen any tornadoes. I hadn't seen the structure I wanted. And so I started looking at the models, and sure enough, June 12th was setting up to be the day that I had been wanting all spring. And so I knew I'm going to have to tell my wife when I get home, hey, I got to go back out. I called her, I was starting to bring it up, and she's like, hey, just come home and we'll enjoy the evening, and then you can tell me whatever you need to tell me tomorrow. So the next day in the morning, I had to tell her that I booked a flight for tonight and I got to fly back to Denver. So you can kind of see a little bit of where I was emotionally, where, this desperation to get something good, the fact that I had been away from my family for so long, and now I was telling them going back out for another 2 days. For me, this was something that I had to really nail. I had to get what I wanted, which was some beautiful structure. Maybe a tornado, but I really wanted some beautiful supercell time lapses. And I hadn't gotten that all year. So this to me was really, I was kind of putting a lot on the line to go get this. And so I set up, here's a radar of the day, and I'll animate here in a second, but my initial thought was I wanted to play down at the Colorado-Wyoming border near Cheyenne because I thought these storms might be a little bit better for structure down there, whereas there might be more of an opportunity possibly up near Chugwater or Wheatland for tornadoes. And I'm like, I really want to get that structure, and I'm like, I want to play down south. And I had somebody, unfortunately, kind of, I have a lot of friends I chat with about stuff, and this person said, hey, you know what? You stay down there, Mike, and get the structure. We'll get the tornadoes up here. And I let that kind of eat at me, and I ended up finding myself in Chugwater that day, and a bunch of storm chasers were there at this rest area in Chugwater. Met Stephen Locke for the first time. Roger Hill was there. Brandon Sullivan, Brett Wright, all these people were there. The National Weather Service was launching weather balloons from the parking lot. It was exciting. Everyone's there, and all of a sudden a storm went up right to our northwest, and within a short amount of time goes tornado warning. I head northwest, I jump on it, have a good view. I'm hanging out with my buddy Daniel Shaw and Greg Ansel, having a great time, and the storm starts tracking northeast, and I kind of start following these guys around because I'm like, hey, let's go chase the storm, we're all gonna get a tornado, it's fun. And I got kind of caught up in the moment of hanging out with friends and just wanting to follow them, and the storm starts getting away from us, and we're zigzagging down dirt roads, and I was like, this storm, first off, doesn't look that great. I'm never going to get in front of this thing, and I don't know why I'm doing this. Why aren't I following my own instincts? And so right around this time where I'm in the middle of dirt roads, starting to get further east towards Torrington, you can see my storm goes up, and it's got goes tornado warning. It starts tracking off this way, maybe a little tornado warning report, but I didn't see it. And as I'm over there, I start seeing the storms down south. And look at what happens down by Cheyenne. These storms go up, and all of a sudden you can just see tornado, 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 tornado. And as I get to kind of the Torrington and pull over as my storm starts disappearing and not looking that great, I start seeing the photos from down there. Like this one from Paige Burris. I mean, amazing structure that I hadn't seen all year. Not only is there this structure, but if you can look on the bottom left, a tornado in the distance as well. Structure and a tornado in one shot, amazing. Or our friend John Serlin here, one of my good friends who sometimes annoys the crap out of me, is getting this down there. And I'm up here basically doing this. If I'm being brutally honest, I pulled over and stopped the car and got out and had my head rested against like the side of the car like this, and I had tears in my eyes, and I was like banging the side of the car because here I was, having been gone forever, going back out, kind of disappointing my wife and my kids. And what do? I go out, and in my head I had just let them all down. I had failed them, I failed myself, and it was about the lowest I've ever been. I was ready to call it quits. I basically said, how long does it take to get back to Denver? I'm driving right back right now and booking a flight home. That's it, I'm done. And as I'm sitting there, I see some tour vans down there, and I see Roger Hill down there. And it dawned on me that a legend like Roger Hill is a quarter mile away from I am, and he's probably feeling the same disappointment as I am at that moment. And for some reason, it put things in perspective for me. If a guy as amazing as Roger Hill can do what I just did, and missing the bonanza of the day down at Carpenter, then maybe it's not so bad. You know, maybe I just did the best I could. And in my head, I thought, you know what, it's only 4:35. There's plenty of daylight left. If I blast southeast towards Nebraska, I might be able to get in front of these storms. So I sucked it up, I wiped the tears from my eyes, and I started flying southeast and said, I'm just going to make something out of this day. And I get past Scotts Bluff and pull over in front of the storm, and suddenly, you know, I'm in front of this beautiful greenish blue supercell, amazing lightning, and it was healing, right? I got in front of this one, I got in front of another one, I got further east, and there was another beautiful storm. Race to Alliance, go east, I'm in the Sandhills, it's almost like 11:30 at night by this time, and in the distance is this beautiful supercell going by. I can't keep up with it, so I stand on a hill, and I time-lapse this storm rolling by. And it was one of the most incredible sights. This is one of my favorite time-lapses that I've ever shot. The back side of this with the boiling clouds and all the lightning, this mammatus. It was stunning. And I'm not entirely sure. I believe that, you know, the latest series that was on I forget what station it was on, but One Strange Rock was out recently. It was a National Geographic show, and I think they licensed this clip for some lightning segment. And none of that would have happened if I had just quit and given up and gone back to Denver. And so that's kind of the moral of the story here. It's, you know, storm chasing is hard. A lot of times you want to call it quits, and I've wanted to a bunch of times, especially on this day. But somehow inside of me I found the willpower to keep chasing. And that's what it takes. Storm chasing is super duper hard. You're gonna miss stuff all the time, and you're just gonna have to keep chasing because weather does whatever it wants. And so like the next day, I decided to stay one more day because I couldn't go home kind of feeling the way I felt. And so I forecasted myself, went to middle Nebraska, got in a beautiful storm, and it was again another great healing moment for me. And I went home, and I feel like it kind of changed me. So this is kind of my story of failing big time, but you know, overcoming that feeling of failure and working hard. And so I kind of just wanted to share my heart and share this with you guys, because I know when you're starting out and maybe you're following photographers or other storm chasers, and you see them getting all kinds of amazing photos and videos of tornadoes and lightning and all this stuff, and you think, oh, I just want to do that, and then you go out a few times and you don't do it. You know, it took me many years before I even saw my first supercell, and so the moral of the story is to not give up. You know, if you don't get anything your first time out, go out again and get better at what you do. Get better at taking pictures. Get better at forecasting. Get better at working with other people if you need to. You know, looking at road networks, doing everything you can to be able to position better. A million different things that you can do, but mostly you just don't give up. So keep chasing, and good things are going to happen.